In 1935, they came not to conquer Everest, but to unlock its secrets. Yet what they found among avalanches, shifting ice, and a lone climber's grave would forever change the mountain's future.
It's 2:20 a.m. I'm still buried in the Himalayan Club Journals, century-old field notes from the Himalayas. It's like diving deep into the documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s. The journals cover everything, from indigenous wisdom, cultural myths, to epic expeditions and groundbreaking discoveries. These forgotten stories are brought to life by synthetic voices in the Himalayan Journals podcast. Subscribe, zone out, binge, and pass it to a fellow mountain junkie.
In the spring of 1935, the Tibetan authorities granted permission for an expedition to Mount Everest. The Mount Everest Committee realized it was too late to attempt a climb before the monsoon, yet several questions needed urgent answers. A reconnaissance would therefore be sent, not to conquer the summit, but to prepare for 1936. The purposes of this journey were many: to study the behavior of monsoon snow at high altitudes, to test new routes from the west, to assess the shifting ice of the North Col, to trial new climbers for the following year, to experiment with food and equipment at altitude, and above all, to carry out a fresh survey of the mountain's northern approaches. A strong party was assembled. Eric Shipton would lead. Alongside him were H.W. Tilman, his companion from Nanda Devi, the New Zealander L.V. Bryant, Edwin Kempson, a schoolmaster with long alpine experience, Dr. Charles Warren, who had served with Marco Pallis in 1933, and the young medical student E.H.L. Wigram. Michael Spender, invited to make the survey, hurriedly gathered his equipment and joined them. Sherpa and Bhutia porters, among them Ang Thakai, Pasang, Tsering Thakai, and Rinzing, carried the loads, while Karmapal once again served as interpreter. They set out from Darjeeling in late May, crossing into Tibet by way of the Kongra La, moving west near the frontier and exploring the attractive ranges of Nyono Ri and Amadrime. The Tibetans received them with courtesy, though the authorities were cautious, fearing that expeditions unsettled local life with their heavy spending. By early July, the party reached Rongbuk. The abbot of the monastery greeted them with warmth and advice. On the 6th, they moved directly up to Camp Thupian, pushing swiftly up the glacier until on the 8th of July, they reached Camp 3rd. A few hundred yards beyond this camp, they came upon a body. It was Maurice Wilson, who had attempted the mountain alone in 1934. From his diary and from the cache of food beside him, it seemed he had died quietly in his tent after repeated failed attempts on the North Col. His tent had long since been torn away by the wind. The party turned their attention to the col itself. Since 1933, the route had changed, the punch bowl and its wall now buried beneath tottering seracs. A tongue of ice further right gave them access, though old campsites were gone. They cautiously examined every slope, expecting avalanches, yet found the snow well packed. Within 3 days, they had a camp on the crest of the col, stocked for a fortnight, manned by Kempson, Warren, Shipton, and 9 Sherpas. They were within striking distance of the northeast ridge. The ease with which this had been achieved convinced Shipton that small light parties had the advantage in the Himalaya, while large European groups suffered from weight and division. The weather broke. For 4 days they waited, unwilling to waste strength on the ridge. On the 16th of July, they decided to descend to the East Rongbuk, to climb lesser peaks until conditions improved. Soon they discovered the danger of monsoon snow. Their line of ascent had peeled away in an avalanche 6 feet deep, along a slope they had all judged safe. To Shipton, this was decisive. They abandoned their stores and resolved to have nothing more to do with the North Col in the monsoon. The lesson was clear. Snow above 23,000 feet did not settle safely in these months. The only possible season for Everest was the brief window between the end of winter gales and the arrival of the rains. The party turned to other climbs. On Kartafu, Kellis Rock Peak, and neighboring summits, they made ascents, photographed Everest and Makalu, and tested the snow at various altitudes. Again and again they found conditions change suddenly at 23,000 feet, from firm to treacherous. Spender, meanwhile, mapped and photographed tirelessly, building a new survey of the Great North Face. In late July, the expedition split. Some went east to the Karta Changri Pass, others towards the West Rongbuk. They endured storms, short rations, and illness among the Sherpas. Yet they climbed many peaks above 21,000 feet, reconnoitered the northwest ridge, and looked long into the western Tadawalluim. It seemed possible, though it lay in Nepal and remained beyond reach. By mid-August, they attempted Changsay, but the snow was so deep and the stove so feeble that they were forced back. Their return eastwards took them across little-known passes and glaciers. They explored the Karta Changri and Lang Chu, climbed further peaks, and supported Spender's careful triangulations. There were moments of danger. Pasang hurtling down a slope in a failed glissade, rescued only by fortune, or the whole party bombarding one another with loose stones on steep gullies. Yet eventually they descended into meadows and pastures, where fuel, food, and warmth returned. By September, the reconnaissance was complete. They had proved that monsoon snow made the North Col impassable, dismissed the northwest ridge as impracticable, and surveyed the mountain afresh. They returned by Sikkim, climbing a little more in the Dodang Nima range, though the rains followed them still. The Everest reconnaissance of 1935 did not bring climbers close to the summit, but it brought something equally valuable: clarity. The mountain could not be approached in the monsoon. The routes were narrowed, the surveys corrected, and a new team was tested. The last 2,000 feet of Everest remained unsolved, but the way forward was now more sharply defined.